Joining us now, National Campaign Manager Donald J. Trump for President, on top of every poll everywhere known to man, Corey Lewandowski. Hey, Corey, great to have you back.
Great to be with you. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Look, everybody except me was saying, "Oh, this is a flash in the pan. It's going to go down." The stuff he said about John McCain, what did Lindsey Graham say? This is the tipping point, etc. Your guys' rise in the polls and sustainability has been shocking. Now, you're kind of the architect of this, Corey. You're the national campaign manager. What is happening out there?
Well, I think what is happening is, as you know and you've seen, is the American electorate is tired of politicians who are all talk and no action, who say that they'll do one thing and never get it done. They want someone who is a straight talker, who has a proven record of success, particularly in creating jobs, particularly when it comes to negotiations and doing what is best. And it is time to make sure that we put someone in charge of our country who has our country's best interests first and not their own best interests. So I think what you see is, as I've had the privilege of traveling with Mr. Trump to a lot of places. Last week we were in South Carolina, and we went down to the Texas border, and we also went to Iowa, and we have record crowds, huge applause. People are resonating. His message is resonating, which is make America great again. It's really hard to argue with that.
Now, I want to get to Mr. Trump at an interview last night. I believe it was on Sean Hannity. I actually stayed up for that, 10 p.m. Eastern on Fox News. And he talked about what he would do with the 11 to 31 illegals, immigrants that are in the country now. And he said there would have to be a process where they applied legally. How would that work?
Well, so look, we've got a huge problem in this country, right? As we know, the first step of solving our illegal alien problem, which are these people are coming across our borders, they're killing American citizens, and, many times have been deported on numerous occasions. They're felons, as we've seen in California and other places. The first thing we need to do is we need to build a wall. That wall makes us impenetrable, which means you can't come into the country illegally anymore. We're going to stop that. That's the first thing. That's the most important, is it doesn't matter how much water you have in your boat. If you don't stop the water from coming in, you're eventually going to sink.
Right.
So the first thing to do is to plug the hole. That's what we're going to do. We're going to build a wall that stops that from continuing. Then what we need to do is we need to identify all of the people who are in this country illegally, and we need to go back and enforce the rules, the rules of law, the existing U.S. immigration laws before Obama came in, that says if you are a business and you hire illegal aliens, then you are in violation. This helps lead to self-deportation, right? We call that attrition through enforcement. It's an important step. But the bottom line is this: if you've come to the country illegally and you have been a productive member of society, we are going to deport everybody, and then you have the opportunity to apply through an expedited process. But all of those people that have been in our country illegally and are committing crimes and are in our jails and are doing all of the things that make our lives worse, they have no opportunity to come back in. We stop them at the border, and we never let them back in. And that's an important factor.
Okay, so if you're bad, if you've committed a crime, if you're a felon, if you're in jail, you're out. We're sick of paying for them. You're going back. You're not going to come back in. I think that makes sense. But what I hear you saying now, and what I thought I heard and now confirmed Mr. Trump say last evening is, look, if you broke the law, you got to go back. Simple. You just got to go back and then you reapply, right? Or no,
that's exactly right. Look,
apply.
That's exactly right. And again, our immigration system is broken. We understand that. But you do not give people a pass who've been in the country illegally and say, well, it's okay. It's not okay. If you haven't followed the rules to get here in the first place, we're going to deport you. And then you have the privilege to come and apply to come back into our country, the greatest country in the world. We have people who are coming into this country because we have so many great things to offer, but you have to do it legally, like all of our families did at some point in history, right? They came through, whether it was Ellis Island or somewhere else, they came through, they did the proper paperwork, they assimilated into our country, they became productive members of our society. That's all anybody wants. But to take a pass and say, well, I'm here illegally and I have a right to stay, we fundamentally disagree with that.
Okay, so what you're saying is under the Trump plan, if you're in the country illegally and you're a productive member, you still are going to get deported back to the country you came from illegally, and then you have to apply.
That's exactly right.
Now, what about the grandma syndrome, right? Ripping families apart from each other. How would you deal with all that?
Let me ask you the question. We had the privilege of going out and meeting with some of the families in California who were direct relatives of victims of crime that were committed by illegal aliens in the country. So, Jamil Shah. You want to talk about ripping a family apart? His son was gunned down in cold blood, shot in the face by an illegal alien who was just released from prison. What about his family? Mm-hmm. What about those families? Mm-hmm. What about the Steinel family who's, that poor woman died in her father's arms at the hands of an illegal immigrant, an illegal alien who came into the country, was deported 5 times. So do we really need to worry about the families of those individuals who are here illegally? Or should we be worrying about the American citizens who are here legally and came through the process properly? I would err on the side of we need to protect our people, the American citizens, first.
So, it is fair to say, Corey Lewandowski, campaign manager for the Donald Trump for President campaign, it is fair to say that productive member society or not, if you're illegal, you came to the country illegally and broke the law, right? Isn't that the bottom line here?
That is the bottom line. If you break the law by coming into the country illegally, you have started off on the wrong path, and we can't have it. We need to allow legal immigrants to come to the country. We need to expedite the process for the people that deserve and have a privilege of coming here. We need to look at those people who are, productive members of society. If you are on a student visa and you are first in your class at Harvard or Stanford or any of those other Ivy League schools, you know what we do? We send you back if you're here. We don't let you stay, right? What we're doing is we're allowing illegals to come across the border, and then we're saying, well, you know what, we can't do anything about it. You can say that's what this administration is doing, and it's wrong. We need to protect our own country. We need to make sure that you're coming in legally, that there is a process, an expedited process. It makes perfect sense. But you don't get to bypass the rules and then say, well, I've been here long enough. You don't get to sit in someone else's house for 30 years and say, well, it's kind of mine now because you've been on vacation. It doesn't work that way.
So you guys are going to be committed to basically rounding anybody here who's here illegally, rounding them up and sending them back.
Yeah, that's right. And here's the biggest problem we have is our government is so inept. It is run by politicians and bureaucrats that are so useless that you cannot get a straight answer from these bureaucrats of how many illegals are actually in our country. You've heard the number 11 million, maybe you've heard 30 million. Well, that is a huge margin, right? There's a giant delta between those two. Is it 11 million? Is it 30? Is it 50? Does anybody know?
No one
knows. The fact is we don't even know. We can't even tell you within 10 million how many illegals are actually in the country. And that's shameful. We need to do a better job. We need to have better controls. We need to hold our government more accountable. And that's what Donald Trump will do.
Corey, I want to get to the debates. You're going to be front and center. There's no doubt now that you are your candidate is the front runner. He's going to be in the center of the stage. We expect, looking at this, that he's going to get attacked from all sides, which ways till Wednesday. What is your strategy in this debate?
Well, I don't want to give away too much internal discussions, but I can tell you this. You have to remember, these politicians who are going to be on that debate stage have made a career out of debates, right? They run for office, they debate. They win, they debate. They lose, they debate. They stand up and they talk and they talk and they talk. The difference is Donald Trump has never been on a debate stage, and what I have heard recently is, well, Governor Jeb Bush hasn't debated in 12 years, so he could be a little rusty. Well, Donald Trump has never debated. Well, these guys are out debating. He's out creating jobs. He's out, improving the economy. He's out putting people to work. So it's important to remember, I think Donald Trump is going to do very, very well in the debate, but all of these people who are so concerned, what they don't want to talk about is the fact that all of these politicians, they debate all the time, they sit around, they talk, they're all talk, there's no action. And here's another clear indication of the difference between a business executive like Donald Trump and most of the rest of the field. There is a simple form that you need to fill out called a personal financial disclosure statement. It's required to be filled out 30 days after you announce your candidacy. Donald Trump filled out his, and it was a 92-page document because of all of his business holdings, and turned it in not only on time, but early. Almost every other person in the field, all of these politicians whose form was significantly less difficult, had to ask for an extension. And that goes to the mindset of how politicians think. We'll push it off down the road. We won't get it done on time. That would never be accepted in the corporate world, and it shouldn't be accepted in the government world, even though it's legal.
Now, being in the position, Corey, that you are, you know that the attacks on your candidate from the elite media are going to be nonstop, and they're going to start in the they've kind of started, but you haven't even seen it. I mean, from Politico to the Washington Post to the New York Times to what you saw with the ridiculous Des Moines Register editorial, all these blogs, you know that the attacks are going to start because they see your candidate as a direct threat to the Washington media elite establishment. How are you guys going to be able to deal with a non-ending, withering attack on all fronts?
Well, look, we understand that the elite media wants to tear down Donald Trump because the one thing he is not is beholden to the media. The one thing he is not is beholden to donors. You know, all of these other candidates run around and they say, oh, I'm doing meetings with these people. They're meeting with donors, right? Those donors are telling them what positions to take. They're poll testing this. They're going out and talking to their pollsters saying, should I be in favor of this? Should I be opposed to that? Look, the American people are tired of this. We have seen the ineptitude of Washington, D.C. for 30 years. It's time to change it. It's time to put someone in who says, look, I have nothing to lose. I'm not doing this because I want to, be a talk show host or have a successful TV show or write a book. He's done all those things already. Mm-hmm. He's doing it to make the country great again. So he is really the person who has said, I'm willing to put my reputation and my fortune on the line so that I can help make America great again. And all of these other guys who are career politicians are looking for their next stepping stone or to do something to enhance their own image and not doing what's best for the country. So the American people understand that. The elite media can attack Mr. Trump all they want. But as I travel around and I see the massive crowds that he's getting, there is something out there because the people are tired of being lied to and told that something is going to happen and nothing ever changes.
So it seems, Corey, what you're saying is that yourself, your staff, and your candidate are prepared to endure the professional and personal attacks that we are convinced are going to start to hit, right?
Well, there's no question. Look, we know that they're going to go after Mr. Trump on everything from, his business deals from 30 and 40 years ago to, whatever he said in the past. It doesn't matter. I don't think the American people care about that. You know what they care about? They care about being safe and secure in their homes. They want to make sure that their kids have a better life than they do, that they have a job so that they can enjoy the things and have money in the bank. That's what the American people care about. These elite media, we've seen it now for the last 7 weeks, where they attack Trump and say all of these things which are untrue. First, he'll never run, then he'll never file, and then he'll never disclose his money. Every single time he's proven them wrong, and every single time it incites the people who are tired of it to say, I am supporting Trump. Today's polls in New Hampshire have Mr. Trump at 24%. Monmouth University poll has him at 24% in New Hampshire to Jeb Bush's 12%, which is the second closest candidate in that race. Because the people of New Hampshire fundamentally understand that by you telling them the truth, even if they may disagree with you on something, they're big enough, they're sophisticated enough, they want people to tell them the truth, and that's what these politicians will not do.
What is your timeline? What is your timeline for putting out more policy positions, specific policy positions? You've been criticized on that by some people saying, well, this is, we don't have a lot of specifics.
Well, look, candidly, they're all done. They're done, and we're waiting, for our schedule, and we won't be, dictated to by the mainstream media to tell us what we should or shouldn't be doing and how these positions should be put out front. We have been held to a different standard in this race than every other candidate, and so, what we are not going to do is to allow them to drive the narrative of how our campaign should be run. First they said, Mr. Trump's comments about illegals are incendiary and he should recant those. And he said, absolutely not. I'm standing by them. And then they said, this or that. And every single time he has stood up to them and pushed back against the elite media. Mm-hmm. And the people like that. Mm-hmm. So we will not be dictated to of how best to run the campaign or how best to move forward with our plan to make America great again.
Oh, by the way, I just have to throw this out there Corey Lewandowski, I thought your decision to deny media credentials to the liberal rag, Des Moines Register, Gannett-owned rag, I thought was, I cheered that. And, I come from that industry, but I just thought that was very well done. I want to thank you for being with us, Corey Lewandowski, National Campaign Chairman, Manager for the Donald Trump for President campaign. Now, if you want more info, you can go to DonaldJTrump.com, DonaldJTrump.com. You can also follow him on Twitter at RealDonaldTrump. And I also have to tell you, Corey Lewandowski, that my mom donated $26.50 to the Trump for President campaign. She's 87. So you got her fired up.
Well, on behalf of Mr. Trump, please thank your mom. I appreciate it. We've seen an outpouring of support without asking for money. People continue to donate because they want to change our country for the better, and it is very, very humbling when I hear stories like that, where someone who doesn't have to give but feels an obligation to because they want to make the country great again decides to. So it's very humbling, and thank you.